What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Tide Talk, the fan-created podcast talking all things Rhode Island FC. We're here today live from Providence Brewing to get ready for our first ever playoff match against Indy 11. Thank you to everyone who's joining us at the brewery tonight, whether this is your sixth live show or you were just stopping in to grab a beer. We really appreciate it. For those of you who are just learning about Tide Talk, each episode is available on YouTube, and if you're watching now, please take a second to hit that subscribe button and give this episode a thumbs up. You can also find us on your favorite podcast applications like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you listen there, we'd really appreciate it if you took a minute to leave us a 5-star rating and a short review, as it helps more people find our podcast. If you're not already using the RIFC Club Collector app, make sure you click the link in this episode description and type in the code TIDETALK, all one word, to get a free pack to add to your collection. My name is Ryan, and I will be your host today, and I am joined by everyone's favorite Tide Talk utility player, Andrew Quadros. So everybody, let's cozy up, let's crack a beer, and let's dive into this one. I know. Andrew, how are we doing today?
Doing great, man. First playoff game here for RIFC in our history, so it's hard to be upset today. It's going to be a fun one. Really looking forward to this one.
Absolutely. Awesome. So for those of you who are not familiar with Tide Talk is an independent partnership among Rhode Island FC fans and content creators. We have multiple podcasts every week previewing the game that's about to come up, talking about the game in the past. We also have a lot of written content on our blog, such as pre-match reviews. We also have player ratings by Timmy, where he gives everybody a significantly lower score than he should. And then we have our friend Andrew here, who pops in from time to time to bless us with his Tide charts, his mid-season awards, and dare I say, full season awards coming up soon?
Full season award. We got to figure out how exactly we want to handle that, get some participation from the rest of the Tide Talk group, and plenty of other stuff to come in the offseason too.
Awesome. So Andrew, we've done these shows a couple times, and I see a lot of familiar faces. Can you? We've given in the past our reasons for kind of following at RIFC and getting into it. What got you into RIFC?
Yeah, I mean, when the team was announced, I was very excited. Coming from a Portuguese background, I do have a team that I follow in Portugal, and followed a lot of European soccer. And I've always been really drawn to the community and all of the fans and how much they love their teams. And you can see that in the content that follows the team that's created by the fans. You can see that in terms of what you're seeing in the stadium and outside the stadium. And that's always something that I really wanted to have here. Obviously, there's another team that we won't talk about that's nearby, but it never really felt like it really fostered that type of environment and that passion that I wanted to see here. So I saw an opportunity here in my home state to be able to foster that and really build it to what I'm seeing in those other teams. So that team I'm talking about in Portugal is Benfica, and I listen to podcasts that they have, that there are people in America that do them, but I always felt a bit disconnected in the sense that I'm not there in Portugal, in Lisbon. It's not something that is talked about. It's not part of your daily life. And having this team here in Rhode Island, I saw an opportunity to start to build that. And this is really what I want, is for us to be able to build that culture that we see in Europe and South America and in different parts of the world. And I think that this is a hotbed of soccer fandom, and I really think that we can build that here in the years to come.
Absolutely. And I've talked about my origin story here similarly, but same thing, swap Portugal for England, and I absolutely wanted to build a similar vibe that we see with like all these other big teams in the world. So yeah, Andrew, excited to have you up here tonight. So quickly looking at Rhode Island FC's season, I can never get my mouse over there. There we go. Alrighty. So Rhode Island FC finished the season in 5th place in the USL Championship Eastern Conference. As you can see here, a lot of green on their last 5. They are win-win, draw, win-win. They enter the playoffs with a lot of momentum, and I think that definitely has led to a lot of excitement from the fans and even from the larger USL community.
Yeah, I think what we saw from the team, and this isn't unique to Rhode Island, we saw this in many other teams across the league, is that it's very streaky. When you have a 34-game season, there are a lot of ups and downs, different player acquisitions, international windows, things that can happen. So I think Rhode Island's entering in the right form, and probably the best form that they've had all year, even if you include that big stretch during the middle of the season where they were playing really well. And I remember sitting here during one of the live shows, and there weren't, we were going through, what does the rest of the schedule look like? There were about 8 games left. And I think
some of us were a little too optimistic at that part, but we won't mention who that was.
Yeah. So, but what the main thing that we wanted coming out of that was really feeling not only to make the playoffs, because that was part of what we were trying to predict there, but it was also a case of what are we going to look like going into the playoffs? Because we see from the past in the USL, anybody can win on any given day. Last year in the Eastern Conference, #1 seed Louisville lost. #2 seed, I think it was Tampa Bay, if I'm not mistaken, they lost as well. So it really comes down to who's going to show up and what kind of form they're in. So what I really wanted out of that final stretch was not only to get in, ideally get a home playoff spot, which we just missed out on, but just be in top form. And you can't complain about where they're sitting today.
For sure. I mean, we'll get into the playoff picture, but quite frankly, the way that the USL does their tiebreakers, we really should have had that home playoff game, but we will get into that shortly. So, yeah, Rhode Island FC ended the season with a 15-goal differential. A lot of that was due to that last match against Miami. They ended up third in the USL Championship in goals per match, 8th in USL Championship goals conceded per match. And Andrew, this is always my hardest part of putting these slides together is who are the players to watch here. But I think we got a couple of good ones here. So you want to kick us off here?
Yeah, first one here is JJ Williams, and this is our informed striker coming off of a hat trick in the last game against Miami. And this is really someone that has played a really important role for the team, especially in the second half of the season when he got fully healthy. He's someone that can score goals, but he plays a really important role in terms of his hold-up play, getting other people involved, his combination play. And he had a tremendous month, and we talk about form going into the playoffs. I think he's been as hot as anyone except for the next guy on the list probably. And we really are looking forward to having him partner up there with Fusan and hopefully bag a goal or two, or at least contribute there. He's nominated for Player of the Month. I'll show you how good of a month he had. There's a few days left in the voting, but he's currently leading that voting. So I think he's a very hot player and very important player for us going into this stretch of hopefully a few playoff games.
For sure. And we've talked so much all year of like if JJ Williams gets hot, and JJ Williams is hot. So I think it's a really exciting time. And speaking of exciting, I have to take this one from you. We have Noah Fusan here, number 11. He is a forward, attacking midfielder, kind of all around phenomenal player. One of my favorites. He was the USL Championship Golden Playmaker of the Year, so he led the league in assists. He was Rhode Island FC's Player of the Season. I think both of those are pretty obvious answers to who had a phenomenal year. Really, Noah did. And a lot of that really came from the end of the year. I think Noah carried us a lot in those draws in the beginning of the year. He was a bit of a super sub role in the middle of the year, but he has absolutely blossomed into a absolute pivotal cog in the machine going forward. And I think one of the reasons why people are so excited going into this playoff run is because of Noah Fusan's form.
Yeah, I think we saw it even from the beginning of the season, that first game at home against New Mexico. You saw the skill that he brings. He plays on a different level than a lot of the players he plays against. He plays well with the ball at his feet. He dribbles well. He crosses well. He's a playmaker, and he's probably our most creative player, our most important player. And if Rhode Island does anything in the playoffs here, he's going to be at the center of that. He is probably our most important player at this point.
Absolutely. And speaking of important players, we would be remiss not to bring up Mr. Clay Holstad. He is our version of Roy Kent. He also is the Defiance 1636 Player of the Season. Had a phenomenal year. He's been ever present. He's been kind of plugging holes wherever we need it. And he's just been the heart and soul of this team, in my opinion.
I agree. He was my vote as a Defiance member for Player of the Year. He is my man crush. And with the end of the season that Fusan had, it made it a little bit more difficult, but I was pretty locked into Clay. He has been our most versatile piece. He has played on defense. He has played in attacking roles. He's played everywhere we need him, not only from game to game, but within games. And that versatility has allowed Coach Cano to do so much in terms of in-game management, filling in for injuries that pop up from game to game, suspensions, whatever else. And I think for many pundits or many people that follow USL that don't follow Rhode Island closely, I think he's a little bit underrated because he's not someone that shows up on the stat sheet in a big way. But I think anyone that watches this team or really understands how this team operates, he's a huge driver of the team, and he's critically important, and he deserves to be on this list.
And dare I say he's due for a Clay Holstad banger?
I think so. It's been a bit, right? He's due for one.
Yeah. Awesome. So as we do in our show, we have fans write in after the show with an RIFC in 3. So figured why don't we have an RIFC in 3 for the season heading into the playoffs. Anyone in the audience want to share one? Timmy has a mouthful of burrito right now. We'll see if he can coax him into it. But Andrew, why don't you kick us off here?
Yeah, for me, I'd say exceeding all expectations. And what I'm
I always have to count them out. I got to make sure.
Yeah. I used Chappy Chief for that one just to make sure that I got the right number of words. But yeah, so I'm actually in the midst of writing a blog that will come out at some time after the season, which hopefully is not for a few more weeks. Is really talking about what the expectations were and what I was trying to get a sense of from people before getting into the playoffs and that final stretch is what were your expectations going in and what would you say would be needed to meet those? I think unless you have the highest of expectations in terms of actually winning the league, it'd be really hard to say they haven't exceeded those expectations. Even if, God forbid, they don't win today, which I think that they will.
Don't do that.
Either way, whatever happens today and for the rest of this month, I think it's easy to say that this team has exceeded all expectations on the field, off the field, what they've done in the community, what they've started to build as a club, the stadium, everything. So exceeding all expectations is my RIFC in 3 for the season thus far.
Awesome. And mine is absolutely cheating because my RIFC in 3 leads into never say die.
We've always spoke to them about
a never say die attitude.
Never say die attitude.
Never say die attitude.
I am prepared for this moment.
You don't give up. You don't quit.
I promise this video is amazing. If you can hear it, it's incredible.
It is amazing, honestly. So being a part of New England sports, you typically see our big sports teams around this area produce these types of videos, and it kind of gives you chills when you're going into the playoffs. And this one was struck in there. I had goosebumps watching this one, and it really gets you amped up, and it shows you the mentality the team's had throughout the whole year. Never say die attitude. Number 4 they scored entire 1 game late in the match. So that's the mentality that they're carrying into this. Hopefully you see that.
And he scores, looking for that playoff berth.
I want my team winning. I want my team tonight.
Albert Deke with a final nail in the coffin.
The never say die experience. Every time we play, everywhere, that's part of it.
Oh, we'll see what happens.
All right.
Awesome. So before we jump into Rhode Island FC's match against Indy 11, just looking at the playoffs here. This is the bracket after last night. There are only 2 games left in the first round. One is obviously Rhode Island FC versus Indy 11. We also have New Mexico United versus Phoenix, which is pretty tasty for a 1-8. But yeah, Andrew, anything that you saw yesterday that was interesting, exciting, surprise?
The one that stood out was Detroit losing. I think a lot of us felt that they were going to be one of the stronger teams in the Eastern Conference. And in my personal bracket, I had Detroit facing Rhode Island in the Eastern Conference final. And to see them get knocked out against a team that really started to flail at the end of the year. I mean, they came in strong at that very last game of the year, but with everything going on kind of in their home cities and just the way the team was performing, you didn't really expect to see that kind of performance, especially against a powerful Detroit team that's been so good at home. So for me, the Detroit losing, I think, was the biggest shocker. Obviously, it went down to penalty kicks, so it's not like they got knocked out during the game. But as a Rhode Island fan, I think it's a bit exciting to see someone that we really thought was going to be a powerhouse in the East get knocked out in this first round.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't really have much to add. I mean, I think a lot of people had the 1 and 2 seeds on upset watch. As you mentioned last year, a lot of these 1 or 2 seeds did lose in the first round. Charleston really took care of business. Indy went up, North Carolina went up 1-0 on Louisville. It had us all a little bit excited because obviously Louisville losing also means we potentially could have a home playoff match if we were to advance as well. Obviously didn't come to fruition, but hopefully we are at Lynn's Family Stadium next weekend there.
Yep. I think you said tonight's game is going to be a good one too. So you have New Mexico United's been the best team in the West going against the defending champion. So that'll be a fun one on CBS Sports Network tonight.
Maybe this can go on my iPad, which is why is that? Cool. So moving ahead here, looking at the Indy summary here, if I can pull it up. There we go. So previewing this match here. So Indy, they took 4th place in the USL Championship Eastern Conference on a bit of a bumpy run of form. So draw, win, loss. We'll talk more about kind of what I think about Indy, but they've ended the year with a -1 goal differential. I personally think that should be disqualifying from hosting a home playoff match, but I don't get to make the rules. They were 7th in the USL Championship in goals per match, 20th in USL Championship goals conceded per match. Kind kind of a weird team, quite frankly. They went on a point of the season where they had 12 wins in a row, which is absolutely incredible. They've also gone multiple times without any wins. So yeah, what do you make of Indy and kind of their season so far?
I don't know. I think that's the answer. But they've been really up and down. They've also had that deep run in the U.S. Open Cup, and they were the major representative for USL that really, I think they took out Atlanta United, and were one step away from doing something really special. So that has to have been a bit of a distraction. They've had ups and downs, and then we've talked at length about the fact that they can just, in the USL, just add players at any time. I think they've really started to turn the corner when they have Malik Foster added to their roster. So it's really hard to know who this team is or what they're capable of. So who's going to show up today? I'm not really sure, but they are on a bit of a high, and they've been probably more streaky than maybe anyone else in the league right now. So it is a bit worrisome for me. I'm not quite on the Indy stinks bandwagon as you are. I think that they are better than people give them credit for. But I hope you're right. I hope we can walk away from this saying, wow, Indy really does stink.
We'll get into that. But yeah, so if anyone didn't get a chance to listen to our away end episode with the guys from the Indy 11, both the Cue the Smoke podcast and the Brickyard Battalion, who's their supporters group, they did a great job calling out their favorite players from the team. My picks here, number one, Jack Blake. He's a midfielder. He just came back off of injury. He co-leads the team in goals with 10. A bunch of those are from penalties. I know one of the big questions that has come up this week is like, how is Indy getting so many penalties? But yeah, so Jack Blake, he's definitely one to watch. So he has a couple assists after returning so far. Aiden Stanley, he was leading the Golden Playmaker award for a while. He's a fullback. He was tied fourth in USL with assists with 7. So he definitely can whip in a mean cross that hopefully we can keep him quiet today. Finally, you just mentioned him, Malik Foster. He scares the shit out of me. He is one of those very rapid, very pacey, and very technically gifted wingers who leads the league, or he's fourth in the league in dribbles per match. As someone who's a fullback, I had nightmares about those types of players who you just had to, even though they didn't score a ton, it just was terrifying to be like, am I going to have to deal with this? Am I going to have to deal with this? Am I going to have to deal with this? So yeah, I know that Betts and Jason did call out a couple other players. Again, hopefully after we win today, you can go back and relish in that episode, but they have some fun players to call out. So Andrew, we did play Indy twice. I don't know if you knew that this season. First match was quite the barn burner. We joked on the podcast at the time, but it was fireworks on and off the pitch that night. This was July 5th, this match. There was fireworks after. Lovely atmosphere the club created. But yeah, 3-3. It was quite incredible. Indy went up quickly with 2 goals. Rhode Island clawed back, and then a last-minute winner there.
Yeah, that was a really fun one. It was a Friday right after the 4th of July. The weather was great, had the fireworks at the end. And this was a bit of a frustrating one because I did feel like Rhode Island was the better team, and then they fell down 2-0. They clawed their way back shortly after tying it. And actually both those goals were very similar goals, almost mirror images of each other, where you had free kicks where Ibarra was setting up the Darcy to head it home. But then shortly after we gave up we scored that tying goal, we gave up one, but then never say die. This team kept fighting. And I'm pretty much one of the last kicks of the game. Beautiful play by Dikwa to kind of open up himself, turn the corner, and feed it back to Enking, who slammed it home. So this was a really fun one, and this was really when the team started to turn the corner in their season. It was kind of like late June, getting into early July. So it was good to see this team fight for this one, and I think it was the beginning of when this team really started to show their grit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the key stats really bear out what you're saying here about Rhode Island FC seemed like the better team. They beat them by almost 8 unexpected goals. We dominated possession, had more shots. We had 4 big chances to their 1. Field tilt, my darling of a stat, was deeply in Rhode Island FC's favor. So kind of all things really did say that we were the better team. However, those 2 early goals, I think that is a key factor in any of these games. And I think it shows Rhode Island FC what they need to do tonight is to not let up one of those goals. We're not going to go through each goal individually, but just one thing to call out, kind of as RIFC were clawing back, one of the ways we got back into the match were 2 set-piece goals where Frank Nadarce scored. As it says here, he was the Defiance man of the match. But I think that's really interesting. as I have a stat here somewhere. Yeah, Indy gave up the 5th most goals on set pieces this season and had the 7th worst expected goals against on set pieces. So hopefully it's another area that Rhode Island FC can continue to exploit tonight as we hopefully put Indy to bed.
And I remember talking after that one where both of those set pieces, they were very quickly taken. Like they were just kind of setting up, standing over the ball. And all of a sudden the whistle blew, they took it, and then they banged it into from the Darcy. So I remember you saying in the pod after that match, it feels like they probably saw something, that they probably identified something in the way Indy sets up their defense on these free kicks that they exploited. And as you saw from those statistics, I think other teams might have as well. So hopefully that this is an area where they can continue to put pressure on Indy today and maybe slip one in.
I do appreciate when you remind me of good takes, not bad takes. So really appreciate it.
I don't remember those.
So I'm going to skip through. I have a bunch of the goals here. We are going to skip those, which is probably going to take 10 minutes to skip them to get to the second game here. No, I'm going to play the game winner. How about that?
It was a fun one.
Yeah, so just for those of you who were not there, the game winner was quite special.
Holding their breaths.
Or the game tie.
Quezera outside of his foot. Here's Chico. There it is. Top shelf. Nothing cheap about that. That is black label stuff.
Again,
top drawer.
And it's for this. So next up, we have the second match against Indy 11, and it's one that I absolutely do not want to talk about. But Rhode Island FC did fall 1-0 to Indy at their place. Hunter Salt, man of the match. He, as I mentioned in the away end, very, very tall boy. He had 4 saves on the night, and quite frankly, it was probably one of the most disappointing matches of the year.
Yeah, if you were to stack rank the worst games as a fan for this season, I think this at least has to be top 3, if not the number 1. I mean, we were riding really high. I think that was really in the middle, or really ended up being the end of our long unbeaten streak. We played okay against Detroit. We're able to tie that one late. The derby was coming up, and we really wanted to see this team riding high. Scott, if you're listening, I'm sorry. So we really wanted to have good momentum going into that last game, and just saw all the turnover. It's something that Kano spoke to this week in the post-game presser. Truthfully, I don't really buy it. I think that they really just wanted to put all of their eggs into the Hartford basket. I wanted to see them go for this one a little bit more, so it just felt like we were trying to fight this one with one hand tied behind our back. So it was just frustrating because we knew at the time that this could end up being the difference. And lo and behold, we're sitting here tied for 4th place, and they have the tiebreaker, which was head-to-head. So it was a frustrating one.
Absolutely. And for those of you who do not remember every single detail about this season, that night was an interesting one. There were 6 changes on the night. And a lot of those players we haven't really seen ever since. Doyle, which we have seen, but begrudgingly, no offense. McGlynn, Gabby Alves, Joe Brito, Colin Smith, and Jackson Lee all started. Quite frankly, we haven't seen Colin Smith since this game. We haven't really seen McGlynn since this game. Gabby has had a spot start. Doyle has had a spot start. Brito has luckily transitioned into a phenomenal super sub. And then Jackson Lee, obviously that's a little bit different with a keeper, but we haven't seen him a ton. So I really think Indy is going to see a significantly different team tonight. Obviously, we just saw the lineup. So excited to dive into that. So yeah, looking at the lineup tonight, we have Koke Vegas in net, Grant Stoneman, Marcus Duggan, and Karufa Yao at the back. We have Frank Darce and Josea Quezera at the wingback. Shout out to Matt Hands for calling that one. We have the adult midfield out there with Zachary Harabout, Clay Holstad, and Mark Ibarra. And then up top, we have creator-in-chief Noah Fuson paired up with JJ Williams. So I'm excited. This is a lineup I would have wanted to see. You could trade Frank or Turnbull. I would have been okay with that. But I think, as Matt called out in his blog, phenomenal optionality that we have off the bench here. And I think this is a team that is set up to win tonight.
Yeah, they're definitely going forward. And I had a feeling going into the Miami game there wasn't going to be a lot of rotation or change in formation because that's basically their tune-up for this one. And you can see it by having the exact same starting 11. I'm kind of confused on what's going on with Turnbull. Like, I don't know if it's a case of him just losing time because of his play. Maybe he's fighting an injury, or maybe he just likes the optionality that you do get by having the Darcy on the right wing. But he hasn't had a lot of experience there. Yeah, he's subbed there at the second to last game. He started there in the final match. So I was kind of expecting Turnbull in this one, but I'm not shocked to see the Darcy. And then the other big open hold or question mark that we had is what does the forward pairing look like? We assumed it wasn't going to be Chico and JJ. I think we probably would have guessed it was going to end up being JJ, given the fact that Chico's coming back from injury and JJ's been so hot. He's going to be the player of the month most likely. So this is an attacking lineup. It's a fun lineup, and I think this is the one that gives the best chance to win.
Yeah, I think there's good balance there. Obviously putting Frank on the wing, less offensive than Turnbull out there, but it gives you a lot of balance. And then, hey, you're chasing the game. You can bring Turnbull off the bench. You can bring Chico off the bench. You can bring Joe Brito off the bench. So there's a lot to go here. And I even say Jack Paniotu, you can bring him off the bench. So there's a lot for Connor to work with here. And I think this is very, very exciting.
There's a lot of firepower there. And then really quickly, you had mentioned that the team that Indy saw in August is not the team that they're going to be seeing today. Same thing could be said for the team that tied us 3-3 at home. And I think that one of the biggest turning points of this season in terms of setting up the lineup was really creating, as you've trademarked now, the adult midfield. And not only has that controlled the midfield, because I do feel like for a large part of the season, the midfield was a bit absent. They had good players there, but they were bypassing the midfield a lot on the attack. They were getting run through a lot on defense. Yep. And I think having Ibarra and Haribo on the field at the same time, what Cole said, not only secured the midfield, but I think the biggest thing that it might have done is it freed up Fuson, because in those midfielder responsibilities that he had before, he doesn't really have those now, and he can just be a creative, attacking, flowing player, and he can connect with the wing, he can come back on defense, he can help up front. So I think that was a really key piece of this too, and Indy did not see that in either one of those games.
Absolutely. So moving into the Club Collector here. So we mentioned at the start of the show, Club Collector is a phenomenally fun way to interact with Rhode Island FC. Shout out to Craig. He pulled a lot of strings behind the scenes to make a playoff match available to play. You can use the code TIETALK Live if you either have not used it in the past or are just getting in to get a couple extra packs to get you started. It's a great time to start as well. You can start building up your cards for next season as well. So Andrew, I just learned before the show that you do not play Club Collector.
I'm on deck for next year.
Okay. Well, if you were to play, who would be your 3 players to watch?
My 3 today, I think Cruzeiro's going to have a big match.
Okay.
Hearing the guys from the USL show talk about the way Indy is set up, and I think that Cruzeiro has an ability to potentially overrun that flank and really cause a lot of problems. So I expect an assist out of him today. I think Noah's going to stay hot, and I think JJ's going to score a goal as well.
Awesome. So I agree on 2 and 3. I have Noah in my lineup. JJ is captaining, but I have Mr. Adult Midfield himself, Zachary Haribo, in there. So I see Timmy adjusting his lineup as we speak. But yeah, so very excited. Big shout out to Craig. He pulled a lot of strings behind the scenes to make this happen. And he got rickrolled in the process, which is just incredible stuff. So now it's the brass tacks, Andrew. You're sitting up here. What is your score prediction?
So I'm going to stick with the prediction I gave on Koha Corner on Monday.
I would have made fun if you didn't. So
yeah, and I think Kevin would as well. So I'm going to go with 3-2 RIFC in extra time. I do think that Indy is better than you specifically give them credit for. I think it's going to be an exciting game. I think it's going to be tighter than we expect. And there's just something about this team. They don't, outside of that Miami game, they just play
they never
matches.
say die?
They never say die. And so what we're going to see is a goal in extra time by JJ Williams to win this one 3-2.
It's kind of fun. I'm going to have a heart attack today, but that's kind of fun.
Yes.
So as people may have heard, Timmy, get ready for this one. I think Indy stink. I don't think they are as good team as they should be. They've had a lot of incredible win streaks, but at the end of the day, they are 18th in the league in expected points. They are 15th in expected goals for, 16th in expected goals against. They are 20th out of 24 in expected goals against at home. Rhode Island FC is 7th in expected points, 6th in expected goals, 7th in expected goals against. And if you look at it since June, 3rd in expected points, 6th in expected goals, 3rd in expected goals against. On paper, Rhode Island FC are the significantly better team. I definitely have fears. Indy have some players that scare me. Hunter Schultz could definitely stand on his head. He, again, is like 6'7" and is just massive. Malik Foster scares me. Jack Blake is starting to get back to his form. But Indy has not played a game against Rhode Island FC where Zach Haribo has started, where Noah Fuson has started, and they have literally never played a game where Koke Vegas has started against them. So I genuinely think Rhode Island FC is going to assert that on paper dominance on the pitch tonight. I think the adult midfield is going to step up. They're going to carry us through this, and I have it 3-1 Rhode Island FC. I think it'll be 2-1 for a very, very long time with a late goal for Rhode Island as they seal it. And then we will have a party at Providence Brewing.
I'll take that.
Awesome. Any score predictions in the crowd? Will? 2-1, okay. 3-1, Timmy knows ball. 2-1. 1-0.
Evan, what do you got?
2-1 in extra. Okay. Anyone else? 2-1, 2-1. A lot of close matches. 2-1 as well. Okay. 2-1. Okay.
No, the key thing is there are no shutouts. And considering the first two USL playoff teams were 0-0 to penalty kicks, that's a good thing.
Awesome. In the chat, we also do have a 3-1 from Providence Brewing, which is hilarious. But yes, speaking of Providence Brewing, huge shout out to Providence Brewing. They've been so supportive throughout the year. I think I mentioned this is either our 5th or 6th live show here. We hope to be back next weekend for Louisville. We've had a ton of fun doing this here, and we've absolutely loved the support that we've always felt from this brewery and always have called this our second home. So we genuinely really appreciate it. So thank you everyone for tuning in tonight, especially those of you who joined live in the chat and that person at the brewery. And a very special thank you to Andrew for jumping in as the co-host tonight. Remember, Tie Talk is more than just a podcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for daily social media content. Please click the link in this episode's description or head to our website, tietalkri.com, to follow all of our accounts. If you're not already there, join the RIFC Nation Facebook group. We're at almost 850 members. It is a great place to see more RIFC content and to interact with your fellow fans. If you're not already using the Club Collector app, which we have been pumping throughout this episode, folks, make sure you click the link in this episode description and type in the code TIETALK, all one word, as well as TIE Talk Live. Make sure you get that double code to get a free pack to add to your collection so that you can play today and have a head start on the next season. Thank you all again for tuning in. For Tie Talk, I have been your host, Ryan, and as always, up the tide.
Up the tide.